Right, hi guys. So this is question 31, and I'm just sort of looking at this just to sort of highlight a few areas. The thing is, the way it's answered, it's just a mark scheme, by the way. So just in case your answers don't look like the mark scheme, there's no need to panic. When I say don't look like, I mean it's the theme that's important. The question of what's happening between as you go from January to February to March. So you might have laid yours out slightly differently, and that's that's fine. What I want to do is let's quickly look at the business we're talking about here, and I think this is a good question. Well, I'll write that in my email, but it's good to just do this question for both parts in particular. You have these people who make paint. Their ultimate goal is to make some green paint, and their initial ingredients are blue paint, yellow paint, and a special bonding agent. And they mix all of this to get this green paint. Now, there are two people involved here. There's a purchasing manager, and hopefully you picked up that the purchasing manager was responsible for, I think this is where they're really going. The marks are recognizing that the purchasing manager is responsible for the material price variance, and the production manager is responsible for the mix and yield. Now, how I tackled this first, I mean, thankfully they gave us somewhere here. They give us the standards. We'll come to use these later, but they give us. And the other thing is, when you look at this question at first, you might think it's really complicated just because it's kind of all over the place. It's a lot of data, but just read through, and that's the same confidence you want to have when you run the exam. You can pick out the marks. Production activity, they tell us that the standard monthly material cost was approximately 20,000. So what we see here, if you like, is that we actually have a base to work with, if you like. So we know there's some kind of if you like, it tells us the standard. So we know that all variances are made up of price and usage. And we are breaking down usage, and the reason I'm making this video is to sort of just show you what's really going on, where we can break down usage into mix and yield. So what we're saying here is we have a price variance of 3,000, we have a mix variance of 2,000, we have a yield variance. This is for the month of January, for example. So it means that we have a usage variance of 6,000, right? So that's what, I mean, that's more information for you to really highlight. We have a usage variance of 6,000, and we can see that that's broken down into a mix of 2 and a yield of 4. So in essence, we have a total variance of 9. Of course, it's what it is, total variance of 9,000. So a deviation of 9 from the 20,000. So that you can also sort of highlight it and look at it that way and start your discussion from that point of view. That you have just showing your understanding of what's going on. What they do in the question is to say things like, oh, that this 3,000 is really you could have said, well, this is 3/9, so you could have said this is a third of the entire variance, or you could say this is 3/20, which is roughly 1/2/20, just over 10%. Just over 10% of the entire variance. So you could also, mention that sort of thing with looking within the months. So before you start kind of comparing month to month, just look at what's going on within a month itself. And of course, highlighting the fact that, again, like the purchasing manager is responsible for this price variance, and the production manager is in charge of this. I mean, it does say, the question really here is that if customers are happy with this thing, I think it says here, the sales are significantly up and appear to be on a rising trend. So it means that we can see things starting to get better. Oops. We can see things starting to get. Sorry, let me just get my pen. My pen is misbehaving. Things starting to get better, but we can see initially that there's a lot of confusion. Definitely here, we have paid more than the actual standard, and we have also not yielded as much, probably because we haven't mixed it properly. But you can suppose all of that. I mean, this is a mix variance, right? You've deviated from the standard mix, and it's not. You've spent more, probably on. Just looking at the prices here, it feels like you've probably spent more on yellow paint I mean, that's quite a bit, 3,000. You could have spent more here. You might have thought you'd go less here. I don't know. The key point is you can suppose as to why these people have come out with a higher mix variance. And definitely it's not brought out as much green paint as you wanted. You had much less green paint for what we would have expected. Much less. So it hasn't worked in January. That's the key point. You could do exactly the same thing in February and March as we're going along. But you can see here, the key point is we can start to see some improvement. We can see that somehow, for some reason, they are getting... And here's the other thing. Remember, one of the objective questions we did, we highlighted the fact that you could have a situation where the problem actually might be with the standards. So really, maybe these are the problems. Maybe there has been a planning variance. Maybe since we last spoke, there's been inflation, if you like. And so we shouldn't entirely blame. So what we should really be arguing is that we should look further into the nature of these variances. And yes, so far we are thinking that all of these are operational variances, that it's very possible to have some planning variances there. For several reasons. So that's kind of the key point. Those are the key issues you want to highlight there. So anyway, let's just assume that everything is purely operational. So we can argue, therefore, we have some improvement. The purchasing manager, for whatever reason, might have gotten either is now able to negotiate better, has found other suppliers, but the prices are coming down, or the deviation from the standard, if you like, is coming down. As we go through from January all the way to March. And definitely we can see that the production manager is getting a better understanding of how to mix. Either he's probably going closer again, whatever. Either he's going towards a standard mix, and we can see less of a deviation, and he's doing it much better. He's now gone past the stage of just getting it better than the actual standard mix. So he's got the mix right now, right? The composition right. And in terms of yield, as a result of having the composition right, we can see good evidence now that he's even giving us more green paint than we expected. But we can see that pattern as we go right through from January to March. Right, so, and we can see the evidence because customers are happier. So just looking at the answers, I think that's kind of I think those are the main points. The fact that you're saying that things have gotten, that these variances have declined as you've gone through from January all the way to March, and come up with some reasons why things were so tricky in January. I suppose things were tricky in January because I suggest maybe there were some planning variances in there that he just had very little control over, and now he's been able to find better suppliers or other suppliers to actually do a better job. And also maybe initial knowledge of how to mix this he didn't really have, but now they sort of have a better understanding, if you like. And the consequences, of course, of this was these higher variances. Okay, right. So key point now, he's experimented and we're doing much better. So just really write. You can go with what I've done here, break it up to show your understanding, and just write as to why you think this has gone the way it has. Okay, great stuff. So we'll stop there and then we'll do part B next.